So I'll give you to the man of the hour and the group coming up, Steve Schmidt.
Thank you. As she said, I'm Steve Schmidt, and I'm the supervisor of the Library Development Office. But in my copious spare time, my lunch hour for the last 3 years, I've been compiling the book about the architectural treasures of the Indiana State Library. So my role here today is to give you a little bit of history and explain a few things about the building that you'll need to understand for the other presenters this afternoon. And then I also want to take the opportunity to point out some of the unique features about this building, which will celebrate its 80th birthday this coming December. So first, a little history, once I figure out how the technology works. Hit enter. Sure. Let me try it. Al, I really think your computer is haunted.
You gotta go to slideshow.
Oh.
Go to slideshow.
Oh.
From current slide. From beginning.
Okay. You can see that, I can't.
Oh, no.
Okay, from beginning. Okay. Aha, okay, success. I figured out, forgive me, I'm a high-functioning Luddite. Okay, first a little bit of history. Indiana became a state in 1816. You're starting to hear that quite regularly since we're coming up on our bicentennial. At that time, the man that would become our first governor hinted at the idea that we really needed a state library to support government. Nobody listened to him. So it wasn't until 1825 that the state legislature, in their first sitting here in the new capital of Indianapolis, created the state library. And at the time, they designated the state librarian to be the Secretary of State. So the Secretary of State earned $400 a year plus $15 a year for his added duties as a librarian. So in 1841, they finally got around to appointing a full-time librarian. Now at this time, there were a lot of duties and a lot of restrictions, such as the library only served the government and the courts, so the librarian could actually be fined up to 1/4 of his magnificent salary of $300 if he lent a book to somebody that wasn't authorized. His other duties included keeping the library neat and clean, keeping it open, basically the same number of hours a week we are now. He was also responsible for dusting the legislature and then mending fences, and I mean that literally. His job included fixing the fences around the State House to keep the cattle and the sheep where they're supposed to be. He also was responsible for mowing the lawn at the State House. Luckily, in the 1880s, the janitorial duties were taken away from them. My boss, who's not here, I'm thankful, is not going to send me out to mow the grass. Now, for our first century of operation, the library was housed in the State House. It started as a series of shelves in one corner of the Secretary of State's office, but over the years, the library grew, and the library's mission grew to the point by the beginning of the 20th century, the state library served all the residents of the state and supported public libraries around the state, much as it does today. But as you can tell from this picture, the collection had grown a little bit. And because of the added duties, because of the growing size of the collection, they really needed a new home. So in 1929, the legislature enacted a special 3-year tax levy that was designed to raise money for a new building. Now, in the early 1930s, the Indianapolis News reported that the tax was expected to bring in about $500,000. Actually did a lot better than that. It brought in just shy $1 million. So they had the money they needed to buy the land, build the building, and then outfit it with furniture and shelves and everything that a library needed. But so now that they have the money, the first thing they had to decide on is where to put the building. And there were a lot of different locations that were bandied around. One of them was on the north end of the State House plot. They talked about Military Park. They talked about War Memorial Plaza. It wasn't there then, so it was available land. But they ultimately decided on this location, which was right across the street from the State House, so it was very convenient. Here's a picture. It was taken during President Harrison's funeral, so it's a few years before this. But you can see the small structures that are on this location. Now, those buildings were a small hotel and a series of boarding houses that were ultimately torn down to make room for the library. But in doing some research, I was interested to find that the 1900 census listed the occupation for a number of the occupants of these boarding houses as prostitute. I hadn't realized that was an official census designation. So anyway, once they had the land and they decided to build the building, they decided to hold a competition for the best design. And they invited local and nationally renowned architects to submit designs. They ultimately got 38 different sets of plans. First prize was the commission for the building plus $2,000 cash. The next three ranking designs would each get $500 for entry. Now, once the entries had all been filed and the list was announced of who had entered, one of the contestants made three $1 bets with a friend of his. His first bet was that a local firm of Burns and James would not finish in the top three. His second bet was that the noted Philadelphia architect Philip Crate would not win the competition. This is the man that had designed the public library just about a decade before. Very well-known architect in the US. His third bet was that Edward Pierre would win the competition. Now, the man that placed those bets, of course, was Edward Pierre. And he told his friend that he would take cash, checks, or money order. In our manuscript section here, we have the money order. That he paid $3 to settle his debt to society and to Edward Pierre. And this was ultimately the winning design. And the Indianapolis Star referred to it as one of the finest and largest libraries of its type in the US. It was really a wonderful design, a beautiful building, and it was built at the height of the Depression, already paid for. This was not a WPA project, though a lot of WPA artists worked on it. Let's see, where are we going now? Okay. The building itself, I want to give you a little bit of explanation of where we are. We are in the old building, the 1934 building. It consists of three uneven floors. The first floor and the fourth floor are very low. The second floor is very high, so there is no third level. But one of the common things people ask as they're wandering around here, well, where are the books? There are not that many books in here. That's because we hide them from you. The building is shaped like a donut. In the center of the building, on the other side of this wall, is another part of the building that has 7 floors. It's called closed stacks. This is where we keep the majority of our books, and you'll be hearing more about this area later today. I also want to tell you that in 1976, in time for the bicentennial, we built a new wing on the west end of the building that has 4 floors. And it also has our new entrance. So just so you're oriented, we have 3 floors in the old building, 7 floors in the center, that's where the books are. There are 4 floors in the new wing, which is most of the public areas. So when people come in today, usually all they see are the first and second floor of that area. And they miss this area entirely. So I'm very glad to have you in here today. And then also it's our new front door. So this will actually make sense to you later when the other guys start talking. I want to talk a little bit about some of the design features of this building, because it really is a fascinating building. It is what's called a stripped classical design, and then it is sprinkled throughout with Art Deco embellishments. So you'll see a lot of both, but it's really considered one of the jewels of Indianapolis architecture. On the outside, near the top, we have some large carvings. Gives you an idea of the size of these carvings. And I particularly want to call your attention to the one that's all the way at the north end of the building. It's this one over here. It's called The Aspiring Student Moving Upward and Onward Forever. Please notice that as Indiana and the students advance, the Native Americans are fading into the landscape. Interesting symbolism for the period, and a lot of people miss that when they look at the building. They also miss the fact that this place is lousy with owls. If you look up at the top, these are Art Deco stylized owls. Owls are the symbol of wisdom and knowledge, and well, right now you're surrounded by them with the ones on all the bookcases. They're more over the doors, going back out to the Great Hall. There's one over the door coming in from the Senate Street side. So owls is a symbol of knowledge, and then you'll also, is a common motif in here, and you'll also see repeated over and over again the way information is recorded and passed on. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. A couple other things while we're still outside the building. Also at the top, but at the north and south ends of the building, are some oversized carvings. These represent the 8 liberal arts, so art, science, religion, history, and the like. And then along 3 sides of the building, right above the lower windows, are some magnificent stone glyphs or stone carvings that are flat surfaced, representing the people that built Indiana. So the Indian, the woodsman, the artist, and so on. But most people, this is the view they see and think of when they talk about the State Library, because this is the entrance you come in. For the last decade, this has been the only public entrance you have. We're hoping to get the Senate Street door reopened, but right now that's still in discussion. But when you come in the library now, the first thing you see is the circulation desk with our smiling staff, who didn't know she was getting her picture taken. But when you come in, stop there, look at the desk, and then look down. And you'll see this stripe on the floor. This is the dividing line between the new building and the old building. So when you come in, cross over that stripe, continue down through the exhibit hall. The exhibits look great anyway, so you need to look at them. It's up a couple of steps, and that brings you to the original lobby. This is the way you were designed and intended to come into this building. You come in the lobby, you look up the grand staircase to the Great Hall, and the first thing that catches your eye is the color from those stained glass windows. And the Great Hall was intended to impress. It's 100 feet long, 30 feet wide, and over 40 feet tall. It's made of Mont Cassino sandstone from the St. Meinrad Monastery down in the southern part of the state. The wood in this building is all Indiana walnut, so the State Library is literally built out of Indiana with Indiana limestone, Indiana sandstone, and Indiana walnut. And then no one can miss the 5 magnificent windows that are out here. They depict in the center the making of the Constitution for the state, and then the other 4 windows reflect the different ways history has been passed from generation to generation, from oral tradition and pictorial writing to illuminated manuscripts and the first printed book. We also have 4 magnificent murals in the building, and I want to call your attention to them in order. Down at the bottom here, we have the mound people, the mound builders, the original residents of this area. Actually, a couple of the baskets in this picture were sketched from life from prehistoric baskets found not too far from this building. In the upper corner, we have the fall of Fort Sackville, which was the first American victory in the Revolution, which took place here in Indiana at Vincennes. The upper left, we have the making of the state, the building of the state, with them framing the Constitution, and then the resources and the types of people that will be needed to make the state strong. And then the one that's at the back of this room, down here, is the Song of Labor, which is dedicated to Indiana's rural past. Now, the one thing that I think is most interesting is the stained glass windows and the murals were both done by the same person. It's a New York artist by the name of J. Scott Williams, who is just magnificent in the work he did, and definitely left his imprint on this building. A couple other things I want to mention above your heads. You'll see the circles with the stars around them. These are printer's devices. Think of them as early logos. This is the way an early European printer would identify his work. So we've got them from all the major printers of the 15th, 16th, and so on. The one over here with the two shields on it is Furst and Schaffer, which is the printing press that Gutenberg had used. He went bankrupt, they bought him out, but it's the same printing press that he had used. So that's one of the earliest ones. The opposite side of the floor is a mirror image of this room, where our browsing collection is today. And the symbols in there are from the American printers. And there's an unusual thing about that. Feel free to ask me later on. Okay, I've rattled on probably about enough now. So let me leave you with one more image. This is the storyteller, the oral historian, passing knowledge on from one generation to the next, because that's really what we're here for today, to hear two more storytellers tell us some of the stories about this building.